glad to be back. I missed last episode because where was I?
We missed you.
Tampa. I was in Tampa.
You were in Tampa.
We were doing a disruption of commercial real estate in real life. It was phenomenal. The energy.
There was like
in that
200
room.
people there, right?
It was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I met a lot of great people that have been in this industry a long time. We all came together. We had Kevin Harrington there from Shark Tank, which, everything about it was just energetic and inspiring. And I think that's a whole lot about why we invited our guest on today, right?
Yes. So let's get started today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to CRE Power Hour. My name is Lisa Marie Wand, and my amazing co-host is Stephanie Gillison. And we've spent the last 2 decades growing and scaling our businesses. And together, we are bringing a new space for you to learn along the best in real estate business at CRE Power Hour. Today, our guest is Sarah Malcolm, and we're so excited to have her on the show. We do have a live audience today, so drop your name and where you're from in the chat. And we welcome you to ask questions in the chat during the show. Let's get right into it. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you both for inviting me to be on. And of course, a special shout out to Linda Day Harrison, who I know helped suggest that you guys reach out to me. So thank you.
She was our very first guest because and I actually had a Zoom with her yesterday, and I think I got another one with her tomorrow. We do. I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Like the master networker of commercial real estate, how she brings us all together and we all really get to know each other through her. I love that.
Yeah, she's a staple in the industry for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Not because of her age, but because she's a staple, right?
She's a stapler. She brings us all together. So Sarah, I have this amazing bio for you, and I'm just going to hit the high points and then you add in whatever you want. But it says here that you were named top 25 of women's founders in commercial real estate, that you're the EVP managing director and founder of Valor, which is an ad agency servicing companies within tech, BioTech, real estate, and healthcare innovation spaces. And it says you take brands with zero traction and build them into something incredible. So welcome.
Ooh.
So good to have you.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much. Is
that good?
Yeah, you killed it.
So we want to know all about you.
Oh, really? Well, what do you want to know?
Bring it on.
Well, I think the most important question, there's a bunch of questions and I can't wait to dive into you today, but how did you get into commercial real estate way back in the day?
Oh my gosh. It's so crazy how that started. I started in the music industry, and I know you're like, how does that get into commercial real estate? Okay,
now we got to pause. What were you doing in the music industry? Because I love music.
Oh, so I went to Berklee College of Music. I was a singer.
Nice.
And I had an album. I started when I was very, very young. I have a twin sister. So we had like a band when we were like 12, 13, 14. And we were singing and gigging out in Atlanta a long time ago. And so anyway, long story short, was in the music industry. I went number 1 on the Australia digital charts on a couple of different genres. And I don't know if you guys remember, no one young on this call would ever know this website, but it was mp3.com.
Yes.
So
I don't know that website. I'm too young.
No.
You know what? It's so hard to be so young, but yes, we'll fill you in later. But yes, I went number 1 on that chart as well. And so, and that's where I really started to learn how to navigate the internet to promote, my brand. And I started doing it for other artists. And then I was really into fashion. And so I started a fashion blog and got to over 500,000 followers. Long story short, my whole family was in commercial real estate. And I was sitting with the CEO of ICSC, Mike Kirchable, and he was like, I saw what you're doing. We really need help in our industry. I had a very extensive retail background, and he's like, can you come over and work with us and help us kind of catch up to the digital era? And I was like,
out of the dark ages.
Yes, exactly. Out of like 1986, basically. So yeah, it was, so that's really how I kind of started, dipping my toe into commercial real estate back then.
That is awesome. I mean, because it's true. We talk about this all the time. You look at commercial real estate and they're so far behind the technology of, even if you pay attention to what happens in residential and how people utilize digital, social media and all that to market and to win business.
Yeah.
It's funny because Lisa Marie and I both built our businesses on the social media platform. And I think most commercial practitioners looked at us like, what are they doing? They don't know what the heck they're doing. But we really did build it there, right? And I mean, it was fine that they didn't appreciate or respect that because, well, that's how we, elevated, right? Lisa Marie, you teach that even.
I teach in the world. So we have 79,000 plus agents at EXP now, which just blows my mind. And we work in the virtual world. So I teach in virtual auditoriums, and I'm known for my social media. So I always get hit up. I teach a class called Marketing Your Commercial Real Estate Business and Social Media. And then I just started one for business brokering because they're even more in the dark ages than traditional brokerage. Like there's nothing out there. And so I love to help people scale their business through social media because, we're not in the Stone Age anymore in commercial real estate. And you're a perfect example, Sarah. I love your story. I'm a singer and I've been a professional musician in the past.
No way.
Yep. And so music is so creative. And wait, Stephanie's like, what?
Stephanie's mind is just blowing up right now.
No, the reason why it's blowing up is because we all united on this call and in life because of commercial real estate. But the truth of the matter is that I'm a prior singer, guitar player, and I still do.
Amazing.
I play drums. I'm actually building a house right now. No lie. It's an adult show, so I could say no shit. But it has a full-blown stage being constructed. My drum set's going to be set up. All of my guitars. I have wall of guitars that I've collected. I started playing when I was 4. So no, I worked my way through school playing live gigs. Never got on MP3 or any of that famous stuff. I did mentor a few of the top 10 in American Idol, believe it or not. I did do that. I've got that on my resume, but I don't really preach it. So anyway, not to steal the thunder at all. I'm just like mind boggled about how we're like all here talking about that, and we all have that in our past. That's crazy.
That is so cool. And that's one of the really neat things. I didn't realize this when Stephanie forced me to come over to EXP Commercial.
Force. Yes.
Forced. That I would be making connections with people like all over the United States, all over the world. And you meet people with such diverse backgrounds. And who would have thought that you could do that in a virtual world? However, I'm meeting way more people than I did before because of this platform. And then stuff like CRE Power Hour and lots of other great things come out of this virtual world. It's almost like there's even more creativity. So Sarah, how do you use the creativity and your musical background? Because when you're a musician, as we are, I feel like our brain works differently. We process it differently. We see things through a creative lens. So how do you bring that creativity into commercial real estate?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one is, I was a performer. So getting up on stage and talking in front of a very large group doesn't even faze me as long as I know what I'm talking about. So I think that's been obviously a huge help for my speaking career. But I think, one part, especially on the digital side of kind of learning how to promote myself. When I went to ICSC, it was funny because they were really excited for me to come on board. I only met with like the top level executives at that point. And they're like, you're gonna, redo our website and whatever you think we need. And so I was like, all right, we're gonna create an app. We're gonna, we ended up doing I think 7 total, for different things. And so when I got in there, I was expecting kind of like a big welcome, and I did not get that. And I think because I was the face of change, and I think that's very hard. You guys know in commercial real estate how hard that is.
It is.
And I remember just kind of talking to everybody
to break the mold.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I know what I'm doing, and just translating that to this industry. So I started, and you know, I was not welcomed, and nothing negative against ICSC. I think it would be anywhere that was just used to doing
You're
things the way they,
edgy.
yes,
You're edgy.
yes, and so
You're like
realized,
the Lady Gaga of commercial real estate. That's what I'm sitting here thinking.
I love it. Oh my God.
that's hilarious. I will take it. I love
Compliment,
her.
by the way,
Without-
Sarah.
Without the meat.
Listen, she's the
Without
best
the
performer
meat.
I've ever seen in my life. So I will take it. So yeah, so I started, I realized fast that if I didn't get the support of the 150 employees there, I was going to lose my job. And I mean, you know, you can't be by yourself on an island and be successful. So, and you can't make the company successful as well. So I started to educate folks on social media about digital trends. And that was the whole point, was just to save my job, right? So I could try to be successful. And that's what turned into, you know, really the launch of my career in commercial real estate. And so, you know, Forbes approached me to be a contributor for them. You know, I started a blog. I got recruited like crazy. I mean, my brand blew up on social. These top CEOs of the industry, really everyone was calling me saying, can you help educate our CMOs and our team, because we're completely lost. Because this was back in like 2010, when, you know, no one knew that this was even would work in our industry. So it was really cool. But I mean, that's truly like, I use the same formula that I did in music for this, and it worked. But I was not trying to promote myself. I was just trying to keep my job. Totally. As brutally honest as that was, that's what I was trying to do.
Well, doesn't, like, for me, I really can create some good stuff when I'm under pressure, because no pressure, no diamond. And so don't you think that maybe you came up with some great stuff because you're like, oh, holy crap, I could lose my job?
Yeah, I did. And I was like, all right. And I was just like, everything that they needed, I just educated on. So I was like, mobile app trends, like where, like how many users are going to be on mobile in the next, you know, 5 years? What does that look like? It's going to go to 50%, you know? And again, that was early on in the days, and it did. And so we need to be ready for mobile. How are we going to support that from a website and an app standpoint, you know, from a social media presence to a digital footprint? What does that look like? So it was just kind of putting that strategy together. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Myself and my team, we won over 40 awards while I was there, just for all of the innovation we were doing. So it was a sandbox, and I was playing. It was awesome.
And love it. So, okay, let's fast forward to today. Okay. And you know what your focus is now is helping others drive their brand, to build that brand on digital. So when you look at 10 years ago, and it was probably what, Facebook and you know, who
Twitter,
knows?
yeah,
Twitter, LinkedIn. So think about then, and now think about it today as it relates to, because every business is different, every industry is a little bit different. But today, because we're just now starting to see some commercial people go, oh, maybe I should get on LinkedIn. And I'm like, that's so 10 years ago, but we still need it, right?
It's true.
I mean,
it's true.
LinkedIn's big for commercial. I mean, it's still big, and you definitely need to be there. And if you're not, holy moly, right? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But now evolve us into today, because what else should we be thinking about if we're in commercial real estate building our brand? What else do we need to be dancing on TikTok? I mean, I don't, you know, you tell me.
I do not want to do that.
If you want to be dancing on TikTok, it's totally up to you. So the one thing I want to say quickly about LinkedIn, since you said that, because I do hear that a lot, especially from, you know, kind of the little more veteran, old school folks in commercial real estate, like, do I really need to do LinkedIn? And, you know, at some point you're representing your company, right? I mean, you're an advocate for your company, and that's really what social media is. And this industry is about people, right? So it's people want to learn about people. People want to work with people they like. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, right? And so if there's no way for them to get to know you, social media is an opportunity. I remember one time I was with a company. It wasn't ICSC, it was another one, and there was a woman. It was actually last year at the CREI Summit. If you guys don't know that summit, you should check it out. It's an influencer summit. It's CREISummit.com. It's this year's in September. I believe on the 15th and 16th in New Orleans. I will be there.
Oh, I
But,
love New Orleans.
What'd you say?
I love New Orleans.
I've never been. I can't wait. I can't wait. So, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
You were talking about social media and people in commercial real estate being on social media, because that's how people get to know you and you're a representative for your business.
Thank you. This is actually a really funny story. So, so this woman met me at another event like 2 years. It was the year before the pandemic. And so she thought she met me, and I was apparently really rude to her. Well, what happened was she met somebody else that was a blonde, and she thought it was me. And so through the entire pandemic, I was hosting clubhouses, I was webinars, I was all over social because I couldn't have that face-to-face. So I was all over it. And we met in person at the CREI Summit, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Sarah." She goes, "I thought the person I met 2 years ago was you. And I've been following you on social." And I was like, this girl must be schizophrenic, because she was so mean to me, but she's so nice, like on everything else. She was like, this girl must be psycho. And then she's like, and then now I meet you and I realize the person I met was, I'm 5'2", was like 5'11". And I was like, that was.
Is she saying that all of us blondes look alike? Is that so?
Yes, for sure. So it was funny because, I was able to recover that situation, even though it wasn't me. And she, thought she met me. I was able to recover that on social and build my brand. And that's the reason why I bring up this point, is because that's what you do on social. After a pandemic like we had, everyone who didn't have their digital, strategy together, they honestly were screwed. They were. There was no events. There was no, and then people were scrambling to learn how to use Zoom. Remember that? Which sounds crazy now. It sounds so funny. And, you saw those viral videos of like people going to the bathroom on Zoom and didn't realize their camera was off. And it was just such a mess.
That is real. That happens.
Yes. It's like, it's so crazy. So it's now is the time that if you don't have it together, you have to. It is going in that direction with the metaverse, with VR, AR. You guys, I know I'm speaking to the choir because you guys were in the metaverse before Meta was in the metaverse.
Right.
You put the meta in the verse.
You did. Full credit to you ladies, for sure.
Hey, you still have your virtual booth in our expo hall,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've kept it in there for you. You and Linda Day, you both have it. So
oh my gosh.
That
stays
so
always.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
I honestly, your virtual event was so much fun. I remember I was sitting there with Linda, Duke Long, a couple of others that were just like, we've known them forever. And we were just sitting there talking at the booth and hanging out. It was, and again, this was, before the events were in person. And so it was just so much fun. And it felt as close as you can get to being in person. It was really, really incredible. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
It's amazing how intimate an event like that can be. So speaking of, trends. So even just a couple years ago, people were fumbling through Zoom, and now Zoom is a word in our vocabulary, and metaverse is becoming a word in our vocabulary. So it's interesting. Once we have innovators, then something that was extreme or not mainstream then becomes totally natural. So how do you help people navigate, for example, in commercial real estate, the trends that are coming up, and how to be able to position themselves and their business to be able to pivot through, because trends are happening faster and faster, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think, it comes down to, we really consider ourselves like a solution partnership, if that makes sense. And we're obviously creative and we do amazing work, but we really focus on, what's your problem and like, how can we solve it through traditional and innovative marketing? And so, video is obviously a huge trend. I can't say it enough. I feel like we've been saying it forever, but it really is. Look, you guys are on video right now, right? And there's a reason why you're on video, because it works. And so, there was a client who came to us and they had a really old building, and it was on Newbury Street in Boston, and it was under construction. It looked like garbage. It was going to look beautiful, but it was in the middle of like just being completely demolished. And they're like, we really need to market this building. We need to come up with something amazing. And we looked at it and we were like, man, this is rough. And so we're like, okay, what can we do? We're like, all right, well, let's storytell. Storytelling, I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? That's what sells everything.
Both shaking
right?
our head. We were just
Yes,
talking about that
We
yeah.
last
just
night.
had that conversation last night.
Last
I love
night.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a key thing. I think everyone listening, like everyone has a story in every single situation, whether it's a deal, whether it's who your background, how you got there. So telling that story is what engages. So anyway, so we ended up, you know, kind of going to the whiteboard and kind of figuring out what we thought would work. And we ended up creating a 3-part docuseries story on this building. And this story, we characterized this building as the queen of the Back Bay. They went through the women's revolution. We told this a beautiful story.
Give me the chills.
It was beautiful. I'm telling you, people actually cried at the end. It was truly incredible. And we brought in the architect, we brought in a historian, we brought in the team, and it came to life. And it was the most beautiful story and at the end of the day, it was this building that really was just looked terrible at the time. Now it's absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. So, but yeah, it was pretty incredible. So it's really just kind of like being like, we know the trends. I mean, we know that video is big. We know influencer marketing is big. We know, storytelling is big. We know that, virtual events are big, but in-person events are more meaningful now. And so, like we know all of that. So we just kind of figure out what's their problem and what would be the best way to make that happen. And there's always storytelling involved, of course.
I love that. I mean, because, there's a lot of, there's a lot of buildings out there that need to be repurposed, and people are just not, I mean, think about what you just said and how often, and this is where I tell my husband all the time, I don't know if he's on here, but I'm going to just tell on him because he's that typical male mindset. Nobody cares about that. And I'm like, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do care, because when you can create that just a little bit of draw to somebody buying something that has a history, that has that awesome past, people do resonate to that. I know I do. I mean, I own a home that was built in 1858. It was pre-Civil War. The Civil War came a decade later.
Wow.
And I think about when it was built. I think about what was established in it, which was Brown-Forman, the bourbon of Kentucky in this home. It went through Prohibition, and there's this humongous vault where they probably hid all that booze that was illegal, and then I think about how the railroad from Louisville to Nashville was started right out in front of this house, which became L&N. That to me, when I go to sell it, that's exactly the story I'm going to tell, because I every time I walk in it, I think, okay, who walked in this home? Who's been here? If these walls could speak to me, what stories could they tell? And it's just a great thought. And that's how I show it when people call me and they go, we just like to look at it. And I'm like, okay.
I want to look at it.
Yeah.
I want to see the vault.
Yeah, I mean, but it's cool. But I love how you took that building and did up, because you drew on somebody's emotion that bought that building, Yeah.
And what was cool is we had a movie premiere. We did it live on Facebook. We sent everybody popcorn, movie tickets. I mean, and it was in the middle of the pandemic.
That is badass. I'm going to just say it. That is badass. I mean, think about that is like the best. Anybody that's on this call, think about that. When you hit that next property, think about it. You were like, oh, this is kind of rough. So you made it awesome.
Yeah. And that's the thing is but I think a lot of people find that. I taught a class last week at JLLMU for branding, really growing your personal brand. And, everyone was like, was thinking, what are you an expert in? What could you story tell about? Like, what do you know? What knowledge could you drop? Like, and, kind of having that conversation. And there's a few people that struggled with, man, I don't think I'm an expert at anything. And so, but once I started talking to them and saying like, well, how do you have a job? Right? Like, and once I started having that conversation, again, I pulled the story out of them and the light bulb came on and they're like, oh, I get it. I get it. So trust me, people want to hear that story. It's the same when you go out to dinner, especially if you're taking a client or a friend. I mean, what do you talk about? Right? Everyone tells stories, whatever that is. I mean, everybody loves work and loves to talk about work, but at the end of the day, we want to know about each other. And that's what we share. And so, and sometimes it can get very uncomfortable, especially on social media, putting your life out there. And I'm not saying you have to like put your blood type or you're positive for COVID or, whatever that is, just sharing that you enjoy hiking and, how does that relate to, who you are as a person, or, you're a triathlete or you're into football or you're a musician, because people like to see layers of humans and humans represent the brands. People, they used to say like, man, you have to humanize your brand. You have to humanize your brand. You have to, but it's more important that the people that represent your brand are there. That will be much more effective than any brand who's trying to be cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I totally agree with you. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I on? Okay, great. Is this thing on?
Hello?
So, well, and that's a good point, because when I do video and stuff online, I used to be so like, I wanted everything perfect. And now I've realized that making mistakes is actually a good thing. And when you combine that with what all three of us here do, which our job essentially, Stephanie, is telling stories, right? I teach through stories. I coach and mentor through stories. We recruit through stories. We talk about what makes EXP Commercial a unique business model in an antiquated business of commercial real estate. So we're telling stories all day long. And what I feel like is so important is the authenticity, because people connect with our authenticity. And that comes from knowing that we're human, that we're not perfect, and that we are more than the person you see, for example, on this live show. So talk to our audience about using authenticity in commercial real estate, because it's the stodgy guy in the suit with the tie and, good old boys. And we, EXP Commercial is blowing that out of the water. And so I feel like authenticity in today's world is one of the most important aspects of connection with humans. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think authenticity is probably the most important thing. I think people can see right through if you're not being who you are. And at some point, they're going to figure it out, right? So you might as well just start being yourself. And that was one thing that I taught in my class last week was it's really important because, like I said, they will figure it out. And you want to make sure you're surrounding people that appreciate you for who you are and accept you for that, because that's when you'll be your best. And I remember a long time ago when I first started in my career, I was so just inexperienced and was, like thinking I need to be this and I need to say this and don't say this, and just overthinking every single thing that I ever said. And I was not my authentic self. And it was honestly, it was just a hot mess. I was a hot mess. And so I quickly figured out that, I can't keep up this charade and I just need to be me. Cause I'm a very energetic, happy person. Sometimes that can be annoying for people. I remember at one of the offices I was walking around and they're like, why are you always smiling? And I was like, cause I'm happy.
That happens to me too. It does.
Right.
People
And so,
like,
and then sometimes people take that as fake. And you're like, no, I'm just legit happy. Like, I'm just happy, like I'm just happy to be here. So, and so at some point I just figured out that I just have to be myself. And that's the advice that I give to everybody else, because it truly works to your benefit. Because, people know what to expect and they either like you or they don't. And the people who like you will help you rise to any occasion. And that's really been the key to my success. So.
And it seems like in the past that people have been hesitant to be authentic in their business because they feel like they have to fit into a mold. And when I look at EXP Commercial as an organization, and we just busted that mold, like,
Yeah.
like that building that got torn down in Boston you were talking about, we're doing the same thing with commercial real estate. And I feel like there's a place for us to have more conversation about people showing their authentic self and building a brand around that. So it's interesting that I can't even imagine even 5 years ago having this conversation about bringing the word authenticity into digital strategy and brand.
Right.
Will you chat with us about that?
Yeah. So I remember when this conversation first started in commercial real estate, and I remember companies were so scared to have people posting on behalf of them. And I remember they're like, make sure that you put in your bio that your thoughts and opinions are yours and not those of your company. Like, I remember just like the freak out in our industry. I mean, everywhere, everybody. I mean, listen, I wrote some of those.
It's still in a lot of those ICAs too, about what they can and can't post, but go ahead.
It is. And I've heard stories and I've seen it of some of my friends who are like posting video content, and their company's like, what are you doing? This was not approved by our marketing department, and meanwhile, they're bringing in leads like crazy, and they're doing deals online. It's just, and I think it's just, it's still out there. And I think it's more that than it is what you guys are, is understanding that you have the people who are content creators and are willing to put themselves out there on behalf of the company have to be embraced. Like, they
Absolutely.
just have to. And I think people haven't figured that out yet. And I think sometimes they're so caught up in the rules and regulations and guidelines, and which is good to have, because you don't want anybody who's just going nuts out there.
You want to keep the outliers from going crazy. But this is where I'm saying the gap is celebrating and having the conversation and encouraging authenticity, because now you can go on Instagram and connect with a big national or international brand and start a deal on Instagram.
Absolutely. And the thing is so let's say you're hiring somebody, right? And that's their focus is deals, right? And so are you going to hire someone who's like, I'm not on social media, or someone who's like, yeah, I've got 20,000 followers. Like, I just have to post and the leads come in. I mean, that's like, for me, I'd be like, well, and you're going to, help my brand. Listen, I believe I was hired, and I know I was, because of my online presence. And there was a company that hired me, and I know they were really not making any moves, and they were like, I want your audience. And so I want your brain, I want your audience. And I know that was a huge part of the package, was that I could, make a splash. And so it truly works. It really does.
So, I want to bring something up, and I'm not going to name names ever, but we have been looking at EXP Commercial for a social media manager. I am not your expertise on social media. I actually hire, right? I have a person that does that.
She leverages,
I have a 12-year-old. I'm glad you're not saying I have a 12-year-old. I'm not kidding. I've sat in meetings where they're like, my 12-year-old could probably do our social for a company.
I have a Katie Hagen, and she's behind this post image right there. Okay.
Katie's awesome.
She's awesome. She's amazing. But I know that is not my expertise. I can't be great at everything. So, that's Katie's role. She's my director of marketing for Gillizen team and our Gillizen brand. And, one of the things that over the course of the last several weeks, I've sat in on some interviews, and I look at if you're applying for, and this is at a corporate level, for the social media manager position, the first thing I'm going to do is look at your social media. And what blew my mind is some of these people, I think, were 12-year-olds, because they had like 1,000 followers on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'm thinking, what? Like, it's one thing being on social media and being able to post, right? One thing being on social media, being able to post some content, but you actually need to engage with people on social media, just like you engage, in real life, just like you engage on the phone, just like you engage. However, you still have to build relationships through that. Yeah. And one of the ways that I've built a lot of relationships is by having these communications in social media, right? Katie might, come up with this great post and it drives a lot of comments and conversation. But then I take that to the next level of reaching out saying, look, I see you're in the same industry, let's do a 5-10 minute Zoom and see how we can help each other.
Right.
I've built business on networking with like-minded people like the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I got to where I am. And I'm not perfect, but that's how I got to where I am so far, is because I have treated every commercial industry, broker, agent, whatever they are, as if they were my client too. And I think that's an important thing to think about,
I think people forget when they get on social media, because it's a really good point, Stephanie. I think when people get on social media, they get thrown off their like social game, right? Yeah. It's like, how to do it offline. When you get online, you're like, ugh. Like, it's like you've never, spoken to a human in your life, right?
It's just like going back and having
like
a first
online
date.
dating.
Yeah.
We were on the same wavelength there. Online dating.
It is.
Like
You're like, I don't know how to
everything you
date.
knew.
Yeah, listen, I've been with my husband for 18 years now. So if I ever went on a date, I mean, God forbid, I would be so rusty. So anyway, but yes, it's funny because they forget just how to be human, and it's the same thing. It's like you reach out to the people that you have conversations with them. If there's someone you want to know, ask for an introduction. It's the same thing just on social. It's like, how do you, there's one thing that I love that I use in all my, with all my clients, is just kind of educating them, as well as the classes that I teach, is it's like the 80-20 rule, but I call it the late night rule. And if you think about like Jimmy Fallon, right? So, and let's say he has Justin Timberlake on, right? And so Justin's there he's not there to hang out with Jimmy. He's there only to promote like a new album or something. And so the whole time Jimmy Fallon's playing games, they're, just talking about his wife, his kids, just talking about anything but the album. And then eventually at the end, Jimmy's like, oh, so you have a new album? He's like, oh yeah. Like, meanwhile, that's the only reason why he's there.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly how you should be online. And that's actually how we naturally are in person. We just don't know that. Yeah. But that's how you treat online, is that 80%, just be yourself, just be educational, beneficial, like, entertaining, like whatever. It's an acronym that I created called BEE. And so it's those 3 key things I just mentioned. Just be a person, be human. And then when you're that and you have something to promote, everyone's going to be your champion because they love you.
That's right. No, that's such a great, that's the truth. And I've never even thought about it in that way, but you're absolutely right. Show yourself, then show what you got.
Yes. Yes. And people will listen. Yeah. If you're there, like used car salesman, used car salesman, used car salesman, used car salesman. And it's funny because people are like, well, I don't want to I'm here to make money. That's the only reason why I'm doing this right now. And you're like, yeah, but life doesn't work like that. People don't work like that. The psychology of people don't work like that. And I mean, and I'm telling this to successful people who go on golf, excursions with clients, and they, talk about whatever that has nothing to do with business all day. But it's like, you cannot just do what you do in real life online. That's all. It's that simple.
Well, you brought up like car dealership. I think of this story that I heard, because you don't think of car dealerships as an example of a business that would be successful in social media, but it's those people that are the 7-figure car salesmen that have taken their business and put it online. And so they're driving cars, they're telling stories about people buying cars, they're putting their whole platform. So the thing that I love about social media is that I'm going to connect with and touch people and interact and possibly do business with people that I never would have known if it wasn't for these social platforms. And people get down on social platforms, especially since the pandemic, because it became a political outlet. It became I'm a vaccinated, you're not vaccinated platform. Yeah. But the essence of it is that I can stay in contact with people that I haven't seen in a while, or people I want to know. Linda Day Harrison was my office reached out to her to say, hey, you were our first guest, you were the #1 guest, and I asked this to everyone who's a guest, who do you recommend that we have on the show that has some great content that can help people grow their business and amplify their relationships? And she recommended you to us, and then we're like, oh my gosh, like this is the perfect.
Duh, I love Sarah.
So let me ask you this, what was your biggest lesson in 2021 during the pandemic from a business and personal perspective too? We want to know.
Yeah, so I lumped 2020 and 2021 into the same category because it really was like the same experience. Again, we were in ground zero in the pandemic. And so we were just completely shut down for a solid 1.5 years. And the one thing that actually came to mind early on in the pandemic was, and it's funny because whenever you're going through a rough situation is a time to reflect, and the best ideas, innovation can come about. I mean, think of like Uber, Venmo, Airbnb, Slack, all of those companies came out of the Great Recession in 2007, 2009, right? And it was because of that recession, those companies were born, right? And they're like, I mean, there's a long list. And so I was like, well, what can I do? And I started Quiet Valor, right? So that was like, really something that I was like, okay, now's the time to jump and just go. Because people for years were like, years, Sarah, you need to start your own agency. You need to start your own agency. And I was terrified. I was like, I want to do it with somebody who wants to do, you know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't.
Please help me, do this with me.
Yeah, just let's hold hands. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It was scary for me. And finally I felt like this is the time. I've been making a lot of money for a lot of people. And, it was just time for me to start my own thing. And again, that's really one of the coolest things that came out of the last 2 years for me through the pandemic. And I think the other one was, not that family wasn't important before, but we moved to New York City away from my family for a solid 11 years. And so it was my husband and I, we made a family there. We ended up moving to Montclair, New Jersey. We built a life up there. We were working out of the city, but we had zero support. I mean, listen, I had to get surgery, and I remember I had to call my realtor to be like, hey, can you take me to the surgery? Because my husband had to watch the kids, and it was just, I had to drive myself for the second child while I was in labor. You know what I mean? Because my husband was in the city. It just was like, I was like, we need some family support. And also I wasn't able to see, my parents are getting older and my husband's, family's getting older. And we were like, we just want to be with everybody. So we did a pandemic move. We sold our house. It was such a crazy experience selling a house in the middle of a pandemic. We had 122 showings. It was bananas. We had to get an Airbnb for 10 days just to accommodate all of the showings. And we ended up selling it. And we moved to Florida and never looked back. And we're just, so again, family is so important. Life is so short. And I think, and honestly, being around your loved ones, I feel like having that support, is just, I don't even know. It's the best thing ever. And I think, from a business standpoint, the support has been amazing and incredible, because I can go, if my husband has to go to, film somewhere and I have to go somewhere to meet a client, we've got so many options to what people are begging us, can we please watch your children? And I'm like, yes.
You're affirming, you're like, please take my children.
I have 3 little boys who I'm just trying to keep out of the ER every day. So yes, you can take them.
Yeah. You're affirming what a lot of the guests that Stephanie and I have had on CRE Power Hour are sharing with us intimately, is that one of the big things that came out of the pandemic is we're getting back to basics, to what's important, to the relationships, to our family. Yes. I mean, we know there's people out there that didn't really want to spend all that time with their family, but for the majority, it allowed us to recalibrate our priorities and to
Yes.
just take a breath and kind of come inward and recharge and get back together with the people we love, because we were so much out in the world. And so I love to hear that from you, because it's simple and it's very powerful.
Mhm.
The power of relationships in our family and in our
Mhm.
business. And I want to ask you a question that there's a couple questions that we ask everybody. And one of them is, what is your secret sauce, Sarah Malcolm?
Oh my gosh. Okay. My secret sauce. Honestly, I
And
think relationships. Like that's
talk
my
about that
secret
a little
sauce.
bit more.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've, I remember a story again. I'm always storytelling. So I remember when I was, I'm a twin, identical twin, and she's in the industry as well. My mom was in the industry, my brother-in-law's in the industry, my nephew's in the industry. So we come from a long line of commercial real estate. But I remember when we were 5 years old, we were living in Kansas, and my sister, who's 8.5 years older than us, she was over us. She was like, I'm done with you people. Like, give me some space. My parents were working, and she was like, just go out and make friends. Just go knock on every door in the neighborhood and just ask to make friends. So from very early on, I learned how to just make friends with people. And then my mom kept getting promoted from company to company to company. She ended up being president of Regency Centers, which I'm sure you guys have heard of. And she was chairman of ICSC. And so she's just on boards like you can't imagine. And she's just such a badass. And so, but she kept getting promoted. So we kept moving from, like, I went to 4 high schools in 4 years.
Wow.
And so I was just trained. It's like I went to like making friends boot camp, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that really translated to me, for me as an adult. And so and I'm a very giving person. I'm always like, what do you need? How can I help? What do you need? How can I help? And so I think between the fact that I love helping people. Unfortunately, money does not motivate me. I wish it did a little bit more, but it doesn't. It's helping people, and it's building genuine relationships. That's like what makes me who I am. And that has been my secret sauce through this entire industry. That's why I know everybody, and I'm friends. Like, I'm genuinely friends with most of my clients.
I love that. You and I have that in common. I believe Stephanie's like that as well. I've seen her, she knows everybody. And I was in the world the other day, and another designated broker from another state came to me about something, and I listened to what she had to say. And I said, how can I make your day better? And she goes, oh my gosh, Lisa Marie, I can't believe you asked me that. She goes, that made me feel so good. She goes, I need to do that more often too, which was not the point. The point is, it doesn't take a lot of energy for us to just stop, slow down, take a breath, listen to what people have to say, and ask them. I teach the people in my group to do that too. It's our question: how can I make your day better? How can I help you? And it goes a long way, especially if you're prepared to do what they ask, because I've asked that to my boyfriend before in the morning, before I'm leaving for the office. How can I make your day better? He's like, Starbucks coffee. I'm like, looking at my watch. But people want to be heard. People want to be acknowledged. So I love the fact that your secret sauce is relationships, because I feel the same way. I just want to help people be better and make the most of their opportunity, and use our relationships to help people. And that's part of what CRE Power Hour is about, because we saw that there were some other people out there that had some commercial real estate podcasts, and we thought we have the opportunity to add way more value and have those unplugged conversations and help lift people up within the within the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember during the pandemic, Macy's did a huge layoff, and I was at Macy's. I was over 20 stores for 5 years, early on in my career. And I remember a lot of my friends who had been there a very long time. I mean, thousands and thousands of people got laid off. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And I was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And so I partnered with a recruiting agency who I was friends with, again, another friend, and said, hey, I have a ton of friends who are looking for jobs, and can we maybe do a webinar and help them? And would you be willing to have conversations, or your team, with each and every one of these individuals. And so he was like, absolutely. And so we held a webinar. I hooked up like so many people with this recruiting agency, and it just, and I wasn't doing it, to make myself look good by any means. I just was like, I saw a lot of my friends hurting, and I've been there before. Like I was in the recession. I remember it. It was not a fun time. And so, so we did it, and, people got jobs, and it was really exciting. So it just, again, it's what motivates me. And I need to have some sort of personal investment in every single thing that I do. And that's where the people come in.
That's
What's on
awesome.
your mind, Stephanie?
I was just thinking, of all the things that was uncovered today, and, so much of just, what we all have in common, and probably the audience does as well too. But I'm going to take it back a notch and say, okay, since we're all singers, of course, we weren't professional musicians, I guess, deemed that like you, Sarah, with an album, but there's probably an old cassette tape I recorded myself on though, but I think since Sarah and I will both be at ICSC, I think it's in your state. I know it's across the state, Lisa Marie, but I think you need to show your ass up, and we're going to go find a venue, and the three of us are going to perform, and we're going to show our audience that we're real too.
Yes,
I'm
let's do it.
so down.
Let's
so
And there
down.
was somebody else had put in the chat that they sang at Madison Square Gardens and all this stuff.
Yeah.
You show up too, ICSC. We're going to figure this. This would be it would be great. It would be
Historic.
awesome.
And
It would be historic.
I'm always up to a challenge. Stephanie knows that. So if she like double dog dares me to do something, I'll be like, bring it on. I'm doing this.
I feel like we should do like, I feel like we should sing together too. Like we should do a song together.
That's what I'm saying. We're gonna do it together. We're gonna do it together, and we're gonna give it back and be authentic, and we'll figure it all out. It'll be awesome and fun.
We're gonna show up at your house, Stephanie, when you get your stage done, and we're gonna get our jam on.
Oh, you'll love it too. And anybody's welcome anytime. You'll have your own guest suite. So
I feel like we need some ideas for band names though. I feel like we need a band name now. Like, so if anyone has any like cool ideas for a band name, I'd love to hear it.
We're somebody's mother.
I love it.
So Sarah, I have twin daughters that are 20 years old. They're not identical.
God bless you.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, because you're probably going to get it. Stephanie, we were just talking about that yesterday too. Yep. So I have twins. It's just interesting, all the stuff that connects us. So in our final minutes, the Wandas, oh, that's good. What's your piece of advice for people we're almost post pandemic, and a lot of things have shifted in a short period of time. What's your recommendation for people to expand and grow their business and their reach in the next 12 months?
So I think we've covered it. But just to kind of recap, it's really focusing on building your brand online. Because at the end of the day, it's your leads, it's, your clients, and whether you're going to stay with the company or leave, like you want to be able to easily take those, leads with you to the next, gig or whatever it is. So it's building that online audience, that supports you and they're champions of you, and vice versa. So I think that's the key, is making sure in the next 12 months, if you haven't already, you need to create your online brand. It's a necessity, in commercial real estate. It's no longer an option.
That is 100%. I love that you said that. For years, we've all said that, of have your brand, have who you are. It doesn't matter where I'm affiliated. It matters on what I am. And that's exactly how, I scaled my business and still continue to do so. And that it's so important. And that's what, we promote. And that's why we have you come on to help coach on that. And Lisa Marie coaches inside of our EXP world about that. And that's what it's about. Have your brand. This is a relationship business, and they need to build the relationship with you, the agent, not the company.
Yes,
Exactly.
girl, preach.
And our company promotes that, you know, that
Yeah,
you can
we
have
want
your
that,
own
yeah.
unique brand within, you know, powered by EXP Commercial, and you can build your brand. And we have someone on here, one of our people from our live audience, Evan, said that he's horrible at social media. And I would say that's one of those things that it's never too late, and you have the opportunity to build your brand and also pivot and shift your brand at any given time in a platform that has the opportunity to reach millions of people. So I mean, the power of social media, using it as a tool, as a brand promoter, and as a connector with people like we talked about today, is so powerful. So if you're watching today, you have an opportunity now. Today's the first day of the rest of your life for you to get your brand going. And if anybody's interested in talking to Stephanie and I about the unique business model at EXP Commercial, you can always reach out to us. Katie has put our contact information and our LinkedIn in the event or in the chat for everybody to see. We'd love to have a conversation with you and to meet you over Zoom. And thank you so much, everybody. Do we have any last minute questions? Or Sarah, what are some thoughts that you have before we close?
Yeah, the one thing I do want to do a little plug, because I would love to meet
Yes.
the folks who are on here today. And I know we're going to be at ICSC Vegas. Linda Day Harrison from the Broker List and I are hosting an event. We kick, it's, I think, our 7th year, Let's Get Social.
And it was so much fun.
Yes. It's the Sunday before ICSC from 5 to 7 at the Aria Sports Bar. And come out. You can register. You can go to the Broker List. Oh, thanks, Linda. She put it in the chat. Thank you. You can go to that link, register. It's free. We have drinks, we network. All the top influencers in the industry are there. So come check it out. And I'd love to see you guys there.
Maybe if they'll let us, we'll sing there.
Be like, we just have a little amp.
We've got a show for you.
Microphones and a disco ball.
I'll pay extra sponsorship, Linda, if you let us sing. No, I'm joking.
Oh, this was so fun today. I felt like we had such good conversation. There's so much value. Stephanie, what are your thoughts?
Hey, I always say to people, look, I am not a social media expert. That's why I have a Katie Hagen. And for any of you that need to become one, because you do, reach out to Sarah. That's what she's here to do. That's her expertise. She can build it for you. Right, Sarah?
Yep. Absolutely.
All right.
Anything with your brand, we're here to help for sure.
Love it.
QuietValor.com. Check it out.
QuietValor.com. Katie will put that in the chat. And CRE Power Hour, we're a live podcast, and we stream live every 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. PST. We also have our podcast on Spotify, CRE Power Hour. Please like and follow. We want to help and amplify as many people as we can. That's why Stephanie and I are here. We appreciate you joining us today, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions or if you'd like to connect. And Sarah, you've been an amazing guest. You're an awesome lady. I can't wait to see you in person and hug you, because I'm a hugger.
Same.
Yeah, Stephanie, hugs are optional, but so there's somebody in the audience today that is at EXP Commercial. She's one of my mentees, and she said, I saw Stephanie in, I think it was in Tampa, right? And she came up and gave you this huge hug. And I said, oh, Stephanie's not really a hugger. She's like, well, she hugged me. So Stephanie might not have had a choice, because Carolyn's full of energy.
I think I've been warming up to the affection these days. So
I think I hugged Stephanie in Vegas.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sarah got a hug out of me too. But you know what? I think what changed me was that for so long we weren't in person, and then it made me more okay. I'll hug you. So hey, that's what COVID did for me. It made me touch people.
There you go. Spread those germs. And
what a win-win, Stephanie.
And Tam Gonzalez was one of our previous guests. She was awesome, talking about building relationships in the sales process. And Tam says in the comments, she goes, I'll get a hug out of Stephanie. I'm like, I know you will.
I know. Now
awesome,
it's
like
the industry challenge. Who gets a hug from Stephanie?
Oh, yeah. I think that we could create a whole storybook around this.
Holy moly.
Thanks, everybody. See you
Bye
next
all.
time.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye,
Thank you.
Sarah.